have a wonderful guest today, a dear friend of mine. I love him to death. He's so awesome. He has been a writer and producer on Everybody Loves Raymond, Seinfeld, and Hot in Cleveland, among other credits. And we're going to talk to him today about love, relationships, and all those shows. Please welcome Steve Skrovan. Yes, I'm talking like I'm in a live comedy club or something.
I can't hear it. I can't hear them.
Yeah, I know, right? Where are the people? I know, but we have viewers already, so we're rolling.
Oh, good. It's very active because I've been putting out this daily sort of joke on Facebook, and of course, there's no way to measure. There's no normal way to measure it, like from sound, like comedians are used to. So I'm looking at, okay, how many people liked it or laughed it, or how many comments there were. It's kind of a whole different way of gauging how well the joke went over.
I know. It's really interesting how social media helps us do that, but you have to be careful that they don't steal your joke, So you have to kind of do a joke light and then kind of develop the bit.
Yeah. I'm not sure I'm putting out anything anybody would want to steal, but...
So give us some of your quarantine tips as far as relationships, because you're married, of course. You've been married for like 200 years or something?
Yeah, about 200 years.
Yes.
Been married for 34 years. We've been together for 43.
43? Oh, my God. That's... Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Congratulations.
And my wife, Shelley, is funnier in her own right, especially when she's not trying to be, but sometimes when she's trying to be. And, we've been in lockdown together for, 42 days now. I know exactly how it is because I'm doing that, thing, that daily diary. And one of the first things that happened is she was watching TV and she was a little down. And, I said, you okay? She said, oh, she was just, feeling a little sad, and feeling lucky that she had her, her health and, a roof over her head and plenty of food and good company, referring to me. And I couldn't help noticing that I came in fourth after plenty of food. Yeah.
Well, after 43 years? I mean, what can you expect, Steve? Come on, food becomes number one, shelter, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The romance, that was another observation I had is that I wanted to dispel the romantic notion of people completing each other's sentences. After a while, it's just annoying.
It is annoying, right? You guys do that all the time?
Yeah. Well, I do it to her, and she finds that very annoying.
Oh, well, I can understand.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit, how did you meet your wife?
Well, we met in college, and we were in a class together. It was a theater class, and another friend of ours introduced us. And it was a theater class, actually, that had an actor named Bronson Pinchot, who's from Perfect Strangers, and also David Hyde Pierce, when he was just David Pierce. But we were all in this class together. I was a football player. I was just kind of, testing it out. I had never been done theater or anything like that. But Shelley had done theater. My friend Kathy had done theater. They introduced us. And we had to do a scene from Midsummer Night's Dream. And I was going to play Demetrius, and Shelley was going to play Helena, and our friend Kathy was directing us. And it's a scene where Helena is chasing Demetrius through the woods. And so we're working on this scene, and there's a point where Shelley grabs my arm, and I said, you know what, might be fun if you're pulling on my arm back and forth. If you let up, I can do a fall because, I'm a football player, I'm an athlete, I can do a fall, and that'll be funny. And so we did that in rehearsal. The first time, then boom, she fell right on top of me. And I thought, well, this is interesting. I like this bit.
That's something.
So we had plenty of weeks to rehearse this. And when somebody falls on you like 20, 25 times, you get to know a person.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
And that's kind of how we kind of met. And although there was a dining hall strike at the time that this was happening, so the three of us, my friend Kathy and Shelley and I, we were just friends. and we would forage for food in restaurants in town as opposed to going to the dining halls. And my roommates were always trying to figure out which one is after you, like any of them were after me. We're just friends, we're buddies and everything, nobody's after me, can't you understand that? And Thanksgiving rolled around, and I stayed at school for Thanksgiving because I thought I'd get some work done. And of course, I stayed over the weekend and didn't get any work done. And Shelley went home. She just lived about an hour and a half away, her parents. And when she came back that Sunday, and I had Thanksgiving, in a diner. And I remember I had lasagna. It was like the saddest Thanksgiving by myself. And I also didn't get any work done. I just watched football all weekend. So she comes back on Saturday and comes to my dorm room, and she has with her a box that is full of Tupperware leftovers from her family Thanksgiving dinner. And her mom's a great cook, and she's a great cook. And she just unfolds this beautiful Thanksgiving dinner for me in my dorm room on Sunday night. And that was the first time I thought, oh, it's you. I like it's like, Shelley. Yeah. It shows how do you get to a guy, just feed him. And she's been feeding me ever since. I consider that our anniversary.
Oh, that's hilarious. I love it.
Even though it took me 9 years to then officially marry me.
Yeah.
I consider my anniversary because that was when I first dawned on me that, oh, I like this girl.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And then 9 years, was just, and I wasn't the one who was holding out. I wasn't the man who, that cliche, the man who couldn't commit. I was ready to get married before she was.
Wow. I
realized 9 years, I could have been a doctor in that time.
Right.
And I went through a lot of the same steps. I went through my internship, my residency. She got a dog to see how I treated the dog. She taught me to cook. And I realized that the entire 9 years, I was being domesticated. It was exactly. She was teaching me all of these things. And after, 43 years, she's still not done.
She's still not done after 43 years?
No, apparently some refinements, rough edges that are not accounted for.
But you're the nicest man ever. You're such a sweetheart. I mean, she's done a great job.
She has done, it's all her. If anybody likes me, it's because of her.
So do you think cooking is an important part? Maybe is that when I'm single, you think, because I don't cook? It's a 4-letter word, cook.
Yeah.
Yeah. So really?
You might want to look into that. Yeah.
Why? Another thing I have to learn.
If you want that,
I'm not sure I want that. I don't know. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
So you've worked on Everybody Loves Raymond, and that is a show about relationships.
Yeah.
So do you have any fun stories on set or in the writer's room that you can tell us?
Well, there's a story that I tell. There are a couple stories, and again, inspired by my wife. There was one where the title of it was Lateness, and I was always getting upset because we'd go someplace and Shelley would make us late, and we were on this couples retreat. This is probably 20 years ago. And, I was one of these, I want to go on a couples retreat, it was for the weekend. It was just in Pasadena. It wasn't that far away. But, you have to do these exercises and talk about your relationship. And, but I'm paying my dues. So I did it. And there was one, and one thing we had to do is we had to write down things that bothered us about the other person.
Uh-oh.
And Shelley took her notebook and immediately started scribbling. and I'm sitting there going, oh, geez, what am I going to, I don't know. And if I write something down, I'm just going to, it's just not going to be good for me. But I wrote down one thing, and I wrote down, I don't like when she makes me late. And as soon as I wrote it down, I thought, okay, this may not help our relationship, but I may have a story idea. And so that next day I went into the office and I pitched this idea, but I said, she's always making me late, and there's something, and everybody else in the room had a story about it, and it didn't cut across gender lines. Sometimes it was the guy being late. It doesn't matter. But it was this theme that everybody related to, but I didn't have a plot. And my friend Aaron Shore was another writer on the show. He told me a story about a friend of his whose father had this thing called AIS when they were growing up. AIS stands for ass in seat.
Yeah.
Your father would set an AIS time, and if your ass was not in the seat at the appointed time, they were leaving without you. And he said it never happened when they were kids. He said it only happened when his friend was actually an adult and was a respected doctor in the community when his father left him. And he tells this story, and Phil Rosenthal, the showrunner, says, that's the act break. Ray leaves Deborah. And I literally started vibrating because I was excited. That was the best act break, because the act break, is like the intermission in a theater. You've got to have a good enough read. The stakes have to be high enough so you have a good enough reason to come back after the commercial. And there's my phone at the end.
Do you have a landline?
I still have a landline too. Yes. So we're gonna have to. That's my daughter actually. So I'm gonna have to let her leave a message. So you may hear my daughter. But anyway, I was vibrating because it was such a great act break, and also, oh my God, I could never imagine doing that in real life. And so that's all the plot I needed. And then all I had to do was build up to that point, and then all the consequences of him leaving. And so that's what we did. I wrote the story, and we refined it in the room where, Deborah promises that she's not going to be late, and they're going to some big event. And then, and Ray's downstairs with his, timing her, and she's all ready, and she's just doing one last thing with their curling iron, and the curling iron sticks in her hair. She can't get the curling iron out, and Ray looks at his watch, gets into the car, looks at his watch a final time. The AIS time has passed, and we hear him turn the key. The engine starts, and you can hear the audience, the live audience, go, "Oh,
wow!"
And that was kind of how this, because everybody thought, oh my God, I can't believe he's doing it. And he left her. And so the rest of the story is he goes to this event, and a couple of friends say, hey, where's Deborah? And he tells his story, and he's very proud of it. And they say, well, good for you. And they both say, boy, I could never do that to my wife. She would kill me. And they start saying what their wives would do. And Ray starts thinking, oh my God, what have I done? He was like Alec Guinness in Bridge on the River Kwai. What have I done? And he says, I can't go home now. I can't believe I've done this. I'm going to have to get in the witness protection program. I can't go home. And he goes home, and she says nothing. Everybody else is there, and the parents are there, and Robert and Amy are there, and they're all telling their own stories about lateness, like we had all done in the room. And then Ray turns to his dad and says, Dad, I did that because that's what you always did. He says, yeah, but I would never have done it. Your mother would have killed me.
Even him, he wouldn't have done it. Yeah.
So that's basically, and that was the episode. And remember, the day it aired on a Monday, the next day on The View, Meredith Vieira and the women on The View were talking about that.
Wow.
And they were talking about it in the same way we had talked about it in the writer's room. The payoff to the story is Shelley has never been late since.
Are you serious?
Yes.
That's how much it affects.
I had to put it on television in order to...
For her to really see that that's real, that it's not...
Yeah, and that happened a lot with all of us, is that sometimes we do these relationship stories, and usually we would make ourselves the butt of the joke, but the message would get across to the spouses when it was on TV for millions of people to watch.
Wow. So it was kind of like a therapy thing for you writers.
Oh, yeah. Well, definitely writing is therapy anyway. But especially we were all telling each other, all of our stories of our lives and our relationships. And that's what made it so, just about all the episodes. And I could say 99% of them were based on real stories or real issues or real conflicts. And we just would expand them from whatever nugget, real life nugget it came from.
Well, that's why it resonated with so many people.
Yeah,
Well, it did. Because it was real. It just felt real.
Yeah.
It was funny, but it felt, that there were real issues. And so it makes a lot of sense. Now, let me ask you a question. Did their marriages kind of improve with all these stories out there, or did they?
The wives got used to it. And this is another thing. And this is a story that I tell in the room. And Ray actually used it as a joke on the Emmys once, because the wives and the husbands got used to their real lives being, used in the show. And one time, Shelley would tell the story about how we'd be having some sort of dispute or argument, and she'd see my eyes kind of go off. And she'd be, "This is not for the show. This is not for the show."
Oh, she would tell you? And
and then I would say, "Well, Shelley, this is how much they give you per episode." And she said, "Okay, this is for the show." And then we sometimes extend the argument artificially just to get a second act.
Hilarious. I love it. Oh, you would extend the art. I love that. That's great. You're right. Actually.
So they got, and there's a story I'm going to tell, my friend Louis Schneider's story about it. It was another great writer who was on the show, which is the antidote to that, because we got late into the series, about season 6 or so. And by this time, his wife had gotten used to being fodder for stories. And they were on a ski trip, and they were in a hotel, and they're coming up at the end of the day with all their ski equipment. And as the doors opened, Lou dropped his keys into the slot on the floor of the elevator.
Yeah.
He's trying to fish his keys out of the slot of the door, and his wife is holding the door that keeps trying to shut, and he's cursing. And his wife, Liz, who's such a great sport, was trying to cheer him up and said, "Well, maybe this will be, a story." And he goes, No, we already did a story where Ray lost his wedding ring down a heating grate. We've already done this story. That's just something shitty that happened. This is just something shitty happened.
He was mad because he couldn't use it. That was the anger. That's so funny. I love that. That's great. And I would love to hear the story about how you pitched this story to all these shows. And then finally, did it ever get picked up? What happened?
Oh, yeah. There was a story that happened when our kids were younger. They were still in grade school, and Shelley was involved in some committee at the school, and the principal of the school was part of this committee too. And he wasn't a real popular guy, but Shelley, who's friend of all living creatures, kind of, she's one who would talk to him. And one time at the end of the meeting, Shelley comes home and she says, "You're not going to believe what happened. Chuck, we were walking to our cars in the parking lot. He said, we'd been talking about poetry. And he gave me a poem. And, I came home, I read the poem. She said, "It's a love poem." I said, "What? He gave you a love poem?" "Yes, it's a love poem." I said, "Let me see it." So she gave me the sheet of paper that had the poem on it. I'm reading the poem. And they go, "This is a love poem? Really?" She goes, "Yes, it is." I said, "I was an English major, and, really? This is a love poem? I'm not seeing it." And she got so pissed off at me.
Of course.
So pissed off at me. "That's a poem." And then she called her sisters. She called her mother. She came back and reported. They all said it's a love poem. How can you say that's not a love poem? And I thought, well, this is a great story. And I think I was still in Raymond at the time, but we had just done something with a poem, another episode of the poem, so we couldn't use it there. I pitched it on another show as that, and people just didn't get it because they didn't get that I wouldn't be jealous. Because to me, the joke was I wasn't jealous. The joke was it was about me explicating this poem to really determine whether it was a love poem, and her being insulted at her saying, "I was hit on by this guy and you don't believe it."
Right.
So finally, after a couple, being on a couple of shows where they just didn't get that story, I was on a show with my friend Tom Saunders. It was this Canadian-American production of a show that's only aired in Canada. And I pitched the story and he loved it. And so I finally got to do the story. And it's Jason Priestley playing my part and Molly Ringwald playing Shelley part in that. And we were able to do the, fulfill the whole, love poem or not.
I that, love poem or not. That's hilarious. That's the worst thing you can do to a woman, because we want to make you jealous. And we want you to understand, look, you're with me. I'm this hot. Somebody's writing a love poem and you just killed her there. You understand?
Yeah. See, that's what happens when you're together so long. It's like it became an academic exercise for me. Not this guy, I'll kill him. And I think in the episode, we had Jason Priestley have to make up for it by going to this committee and making a big scene. But by that time, the Molly Ringwald character had, come to terms with it. So he just ends up embarrassing himself trying to, play that role of the guy. Yeah.
That's a great twist. I love it. That's awesome. So let me see. I have questions right here. See,
all right.
I have my cheat. To close, because we've been on for 22 minutes.
Oh,
and people are tuning in. They're loving you.
Oh,
so
good.
I'm keeping you for a little longer. So tell me the story about your son, that he met this woman in Texas.
Oh, yeah. There's not much of a story there. It was an online relationship, and it's actually, a modern love for the younger generation is they met each other online and had a relationship, obviously platonic, like we're doing now, a video conference relationship for months and months before they ever met each other. And they got to know each other that way at a safe social distance. And so it's not, it's not like two people falling in love and they're all over each other and then there's regrets and they had a platonic intellectual relationship beforehand. And then he made a 3-day trip to Austin, driving there and to finally meet her. And, I can't imagine what was going through his head, because he's taking this, there's some movie here idea in this, taking this 3-day long trip, and you're going to meet this person in the flesh for the first time, and you may not have chemistry or not. Well, it turned out they did have chemistry, and the relationship, flowered for a year and a half, until he finally decided he was going to move to Austin. And by this time he's about 27. And then once they did start living together, they broke up after about 3 months. And I had very mixed feelings about it, because, she broke my son's heart, but then again, she got him out of my house. So
that's awesome. I love that.
I mean, he's still in Austin and he's doing very well.
That's awesome. Well, I have a question for you. I love the show Hot in Cleveland. Do you have any stories about it?
I was just there for 1 year and had a great time. It was interesting for me because it's the first time I'd been in a room where the showrunner was a woman. So it was a different kind of, because that's, who controls who the showrunner is, kind of sets the tenor of the room.
Yeah.
So it was different in that way. And I felt like, I would joke that I felt like I was in some sort of National Geographic documentary where I'm learning all these things about women that I never, about shoes and about Real Housewives, because, when it's dominated by men, you talk about sports and things, so I now knew what it felt like for, the minority of women who were in rooms who were, trying to keep up with all the references, the male-oriented, masculine references. Here I was in that position, kind of like in a foreign land, learning what all these women were talking about and thinking about, and what made them laugh. And so I was very glad for that, to have that experience.
I love it. And what did you learn about women during that time?
Oh, total bitches.
Yeah, right. Sure.
No, what did I learn about women? Not enough, because apparently I'm still being refined after 40.
Oh my God. Your wife is still working on you.
I'm like a sculpture that is just, needs to be, there's a little rough edge there. I didn't notice that one before. Oh, you need to learn this. Here's something else I can teach you. And I said to Shelley once, and this is a direct quote. I said, why do we always have to do things your way?
Uh-oh.
You don't have to do things my way. You just need to decide whether you want to be happy or sad.
Oh, genius. I love your wife. She's a genius. Definitely.
Yeah. I'm lucky.
Okay, so you've been married for 43 years. I've never had that.
34 together for
43 together.
Yeah.
So what would be your advice to people like me who are still single? Like, what makes a successful marriage, in your opinion?
Well, I don't know that I have personal advice, but there's a joke that I heard a while ago, so it's not original with me, but pretty much would represent what I might say. And the joke is, there's a couple who's been married for 50 years, and they're being interviewed, and the interviewer says, what would you attribute to the success of your marriage? And the guy goes, well, we decided very early on that I'd make all the big decisions, she'd make all the little decisions. And the interviewer says, oh, that's interesting. Give me an example of a big decision. He says, I don't know. We haven't had one of those yet.
That's good. That's good. But besides that, like, what is it? Communication? Is it putting up with each other's quirks? What makes your marriage successful?
Well, I think you have to like each other.
Yeah, that's very important. Yeah.
And you have to respect each other, but you can't respect each other too much where you, and this is sometimes where we get into trouble, is where we care too much what the other person thinks. And so we can get defensive because we think we're being judged when we're not really being judged. You put so much pressure on that where you wouldn't necessarily do that in another relationship, a friendship, or even, maybe with your parents or something, or your kids. But, that's one of the things that I would say is, yes, you want to like each other and you want to respect each other, but you can't be too sensitive.
That's true. And I am sensitive. So that's something I got to work on. Yeah. So not take things personal. It's hard sometimes.
Well, and it's obvious there's certain things you would take personally, and you could, but it's because it comes out of, I love and respect this person's opinion so much. Mm-hmm. When they, I correct her, she corrects me. It means too much. It's too fraught, and that I would recommend backing off of.
Yeah, and not engaging in
just try to give the other person a break.
Okay. Yeah. True. Yeah. Okay. Well, now it's become like a therapy session for me.
Yeah, there you go. How else can we help you? Are we taking calls?
People are commenting and they're loving you. So, but we're going to have you back on sometime soon, because this seems to be going on for the quarantine is going to be going on for a little bit.
Who's going anywhere?
Nobody's going anywhere.
You use the excuse for having to be anywhere else, global pandemic.
I know. That's what we needed to take a break from life, right?
Yeah.
Apparently. Oh. Yeah. But we're not going to get into that. Yeah. So, but thank you so much for being on the stream. And, I love you. You're amazing. And thank you so much for gracing the stream.
Thank you, Grace, for being the stream.
Well, thank you.
And gracing the stream could mean a lot of other things. If you have a dirty mind. As a matter of fact, after this is over, I'm going to go grace a stream.
Okay, good.
Bye, dear.
All right. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye, Steve.